Hi, everyone. Welcome to my podcast series, The Holistic Nature of Us. I invite you to take a journey with me into a better understanding of the concepts behind our holistic nature and how that ties us directly to the natural world around us. My intention is to be your guide for this half hour as we begin seeing our world with fresh eyes, gaining more understanding and learning how we can connect the dots in practical ways that we are nature and nature's in us. I feature a broad range of guests deeply concerned about the environmental issues of our time and more. Authors and educators, practitioners, and others whose passion for this earth and for all species help us create sustainable bridges of understanding. These folks are innovators, action-oriented, creating solutions in a variety of ways that honor us and the planet's holistic nature. I am so honored to share their stories, their projects, and their passion with all of you. So thank you once again for joining us today for another engaging interview. And today I welcome back Ajamu Ayinde. Ajamu is a certified medical hypnotherapist and transpersonal hypnotherapy trainer. He has been certified in clinical hypnosis since 1995. Ajamu specializes in hypnotic childbirth preparation, pediatric hypnosis, and cancer support. He was honored as Therapist of the Year by the International Association of Counselors and Therapists in 2004, and he received further honors from the National Association of Transpersonal Therapists in 2012 and 2017 for his work with athletes and pregnant couples. He currently sees clients in the Westchester, New York area and worldwide via Skype. So welcome, Ajamu. It's a delight to have you come back here again and share your wonderful wisdom with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Judith. It is a pleasure.
Well, as we talked about in preparation for today's interview, COVID-19 is on everybody's mind. And as a hypnotherapist, you're obviously working with various levels of the mind-body-spirit issues that are getting pushed and triggered during this time of our sheltering. I like to call it sheltering. So some people are going to you for relief on all these different levels. Tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in your practice, what people are coming to you with, how well are they coping, that kind of thing, and then we'll get into your beautiful explanation of hypnotherapy and why it's an important practice.
Well, what I'm seeing is not so different from what I have been seeing. I've been doing this kind of hypnosis, Skype-based hypnosis, for a while now, about 8 years, and when people look at hypnosis in terms of a modality, it's something that can work with lots of things, especially things that are stress caused or things that are worsened by stress. So I'm getting a lot of the same things. It's just people are having a much harder time dealing with those things. So for example, people who have a pre-existing kind of anxiety condition already prior to COVID-19, it's that much worse. So I have clients who are frontline essential workers that I assist, and they are having a very difficult time because all of their normal anxiety has been ramped up to level 9 or level 10 as a result of these things. And one of the other challenges for them is that their normal ways of de-stressing may not be available to them now. So people who might have gone out dancing, or people who might have gone to a concert or a ball game or something like that, they're not able to do that. And sometimes people with, at least what I have found, is that many people with anxiety are also mildly claustrophobic. And so that's another thing that starts to rear its ugly head. I've got a new client that I've taken on who she's 8. And she has a fear of the dark, and she has a fear of insects, and it's just gotten that much worse now that everyone's at home. Mom and dad are at home, and the siblings are at home, and so all of the attendant fears and insecurities and doubts and such that were all there are coming to the fore. And so people are reaching out to me because of those kinds of things. People are reaching out to me because they've been very successful in managing their weight up until now. So now with the COVID-19, upon us, people have gained 10, 20 or more pounds since we became since we started sheltering. And they're wanting to find ways to not do that, to change the way that they relate to food, to change the way that they relate to activity. It's not as easy to do some of the kinds of, if someone had a gym membership and now they don't, and that was their preferred way of exercising, helping them to find a new way. So helping them with their diet adherence, helping them with exercise motivation. So these are some of the kinds of things that I'm seeing. I'm seeing a lot of people who are concerned, who can't sleep at night, and it may be related to concerns about illness, especially if the client is a little bit older. But it often is related to people just worried about their stock portfolio, worried about their financials, and whether or not things are going to be what they need it to be in order for them to feel that they are comfortable financially.
Wow, you've touched on some really important areas. I think one I'd like to highlight is that our typical ways of decompressing have been changed. And so as positive it is for us to have parades in the neighborhood for teachers and students and all that kind of thing, there is still we can't just go to the library and
Yes.
have a change of pace anymore, or as you mentioned, go to the gym. And I've heard this a couple of times. People say that they are eating more because they're homebound, and it's kind of a go-to mechanism that we have when we're bored.
Oftentimes.
Yeah, seeing the same four walls. So we've got social isolation. We have jobs that have changed. They've been reformatted. We've got children under feet while we're trying to get our jobs done.
Yes.
We can't get even a break from that easily. And if you live in a more citified area, what are families doing in big cities to help with the children? Are they on the sidewalks playing? What's happening?
It's tough. It's tough, and I'm a product of the city. I was born in the Bronx, and I've been out of the city since about '98. And I couldn't imagine being there now. As much as I love New York City, being quarantined in a little can of an apartment, it's tough. It's very tough. And you add children, you add elders to the equation. It's a lot. It's a lot. Sharing, space, bathroom, whatever. It's a lot. Even with people that we love, it's tough. And so parents, I'm recently married. I just got married at the end of February. And
congratulations.
Thank you. So we're having an extended honeymoon,
Yeah.
but it's not what we had expected, of course, when we came back from our honeymoon to find ourselves in the midst of all of this. So even with someone that you're deeply in love with, being unable to get away from them for even a very little while is challenging.
Mm-hmm. It is. It is. I have family with children at home, grandkids at home, and luckily they have a neighborhood where the kids can keep distance, but they can get outside on the grass and run around, and I think
Yes.
that's a benefit of what's happening. But in the cities, it's different. And now you've got a family of four who normally go their own way because of their lifestyle through
Yes.
their work commitments are all under one roof.
Yes.
And is that going to create an anxiety for the little ones when they have to break away from that? That was one of my questions. How are the children handling some of this stuff going on?
Well, I think that the go-to mechanisms, like we mentioned, food, but television and screen time in general is filling up a lot of people's days. The amount of time that children are spending on their schoolwork is not the same, I don't think. And so they're doing a lot more video games. They're doing a lot more Snapchats and things of that sort. And it's going to make it that much harder, I believe, once the situation changes and we, quote, return to a more normal way of being. They're going to have more difficulty with those crutches that they've always had, but they started to rely on more so being quarantined. So
Yeah, and we know that those can become addicting, you know.
yes, indeed.
And we've already addressed that in a global way. There's a lot of studies on that. You know, get outside, get off your phone, get off your tablet, get
Mhm.
out and engage. But now we've been forced to go back into that scenario. So it's an interesting time that we're in. Ajamu, tell us about your practice with hypnotherapy in terms of how are you helping first responders right now and
Mhm.
handling what they're seeing?
Well, first, I feel like what people sometimes forget with hypnotherapy is that it is therapy and it's not just hypnosis. So for me, a lot of what I do is listen to what people are dealing with. Even if I've heard something similar earlier in the day, it doesn't matter. I am that person who is the listening ear and the caring shoulder that they can vent to, whether it's anger, whether it's fear, whether it's tears, whatever it may be. So a lot of what I'm doing is listening empathetically, active listening, helping people to just process what they're feeling. In addition to that, what we do with hypnosis is to help people to find their inner safe space, to create a sanctuary inside of themselves. I talk about people going to the heart of their minds, and that's my little metaphorical phrase that works for me. But we all could benefit from a vacation, but we can't fly. And who knows what the situation is where we will land in terms of their exposure. So a mental vacation is something that many people are glad to accept, and it's really inexpensive by comparison. So what I do with people after I have them kind of decompress and process a little bit of what they're going through is I take them on a little bit of a journey into a place that we create together. They give me some feedback as to what kinds of places they've gone on vacation, what kinds of places they really like and feel safe in, and then I take them there. One of the metaphorical images that I really love, and I think you'll really appreciate this because for many people, hypnosis may not seem like it's connected to nature. But hypnosis is like water. It takes the shape of whatever vessel we put it in. So for me, I'm a nature guy, and I spend a lot of time outside. Even now, I'm fortunate that in our complex where we live, I'm able to get out every day and not have to worry about. I still wear a mask. I'm very, very good about that, and I can get out and about and I remember the things that I see. I stop and I touch the trees and I touch stones and I look at things in a certain sort of way uh, and I bring those things back to my guided imagery. So sometimes what will happen is kind of magical where I might mention a kind of tree or I might mention a fountain or something, and then the person will tell me later, oh, just before you even said that, I saw that. So
Yeah, those
there's
are
a
fun.
yeah, there's a way that we connect when we go into an altered state. We connect with the other person in meaningful ways that we still don't fully understand. So I do my very best, regardless of what condition or what presenting challenge they are coming with, to give them a dose of nature in their time with me. And there are many things in the natural world that I see as powerful metaphors and great healing forces. Water is one of the most common ones that I'll use. So whether that's a person's relationship to the ocean or whether it's having them imagine rivers of relaxation running underneath their skin, or whether it's a waterfall that has magical properties that they can step into and then they can be cleansed of whatever it is that they're dealing with, whether it's anxiety, what have you. Another nature image that I really, really love is the sun. And the setting sun specifically, I found very effective in working with people with different kinds of chronic pain. So whether it's fibromyalgia, which I had a support group for a bunch of years in Ulster and Dutchess counties for, and having them take the pain that they're experiencing in their bodies and project it outward to the setting sun. And so as that sun takes that pain and as that sun gets smaller, then they also are experiencing whatever it is they were experiencing in much less of a way. So it's really bizarre and strange how we can play with things like color and things like shape and size in order to affect a difference in the way that we process pain. But that's something that we've been doing for a very long time successfully with hypnosis.
Yes, and what I love about your explanation is that you engage all the senses. You
Hmm.
know, when you ask somebody to see the setting sun or to think about water, different senses come into play. And again, that's holistic because we are made up of so many senses. We have the typical five, but we're also more complicated than that. So it engages us on different levels by using that kind of imagery and getting people back in nature however they can. And I'm
Yes.
thinking, as you were talking, of some of the big high-rise apartment buildings, you've got
Mm.
elevators. What do people do when they're, all these upper floors and you have to get down to go to the grocery store? How many are they allowing in an elevator, for example?
Right.
So
Right.
that's kind of hard to be with nature in those situations. You go down the street on sidewalks, yes, there might be a tree or two, but that's about it. So what you're
Hmm.
offering them is a way to decompress from that kind of isolation that's typically found in cities. So I really like that. You also talk about transpersonal hypnotherapy, and
Yes.
I think that gets us into more deeply into the field that you've just described. Can you tell us more about that? I love in our last interview you said something about the power of possibility, and I always
Mm.
liked that.
Thank you.
Um, Tell us more.
Well, for me, transpersonal is a term that is not very widely used, but one of the organizations that I'm a member of, actually the organization that I became a trainer through initially in '98, is called the National Association of Transpersonal Hypnotherapists. And they're, once upon a time, they were based in Virginia, and now they're based in North Carolina. But transpersonal simply means spiritual. It simply has to do with whatever we define or whatever the client actually defines as spiritual. So for me, I have a pretty wide palette of ideas about how one might approach spirit. So I'm very open to people who have different ideas of God or goddess. And I do my best to also incorporate the people who may not believe that there is a God out there, who may feel that they identify as agnostic or atheist, because I feel that for those clients, they're oftentimes the most spiritual people that I get a chance to meet because of what they're really doing. They're not doing it in the name of a deity, but many times they're much more concerned about animal rights, or they're much more concerned about other kinds of things, how we're dealing with the earth, than someone who may profess great faith and go to temple or go to whatever it is every time they're supposed to, and yet their relationship to their fellow human, their relationship to animals, their relationship to nature may be not quite as strong. So I'm a big believer in, because what we do in hypnosis involves closing your eyes. It's all about imagination. And much of what is spoken of in spiritual circles has to do with just that, with faith, with imagination, with being in a place where the barriers between ourselves and each other go away. And we are liberated from our self-imposed limitations. So for me, spirituality gives me a kind of emancipation from a mental slavery in the way that some people would maybe see it as the opposite. But I see it as just that, as a way of becoming more free by being able to use the stories that we learn in different spiritual teachings as metaphors, as guidance for how we might grow.
Yeah, and again, I love your point about imagination. It does soften the barriers. It softens our inner barriers, and it can
Mm.
soften our outer barriers as well too. And what I like about that is the way you explain transpersonal hypnosis and hypnotherapy in general using the imagination takes us away from maybe the Hollywood version of hypnosis,
Yes,
which can
indeed.
be a little bit off-putting. I mean, I know I don't want to walk away from somebody and start barking,
Indeed.
and that kind of tomfoolery that occurs with some of these modalities. But instead, what I hear is that it's heart-based, it's empathic,
It is.
and you're using where someone's coming from and joining and meeting them there.
Yes.
And that to me is holistic.
There are two main ways of doing hypnosis to make it as simple as I can. There is what we call suggestive therapy, which is what most people know. If you were to want to stop smoking, if you wanted to manage your weight, you would enter into a relaxed state with a hypnotherapist. He or she would guide you into that place, and then they would offer you some suggestions. Now, these suggestions may be ones that you came up with on your own, or ones that you came up with in collaboration with therapists, or it could be entirely something that the therapist is saying to you. But either way, it's a kind of one-way communication. The client is quiet and still, the hypnotherapist is speaking. When we look at doing things more transpersonally or more spiritually, we're looking at the client in a different way. We're looking at the whole experience as being a two-way street as opposed to a one-way street. We're looking at the wellspring of wisdom that lies within each and every client. And we're asking that person while they're in hypnosis, well, what do you think? How do you feel this might be resolved? So many times what I end up doing in hypnosis is being kind of a glorified secretary. I help someone to get into a relaxed state, and then I ask them the questions that they want to have answered. I don't have those answers for them. Fortunately, they have those answers, but they're not coming from their conscious mind. They're coming from a deeper recess than that. And so I'm feverishly writing because I write faster than I type. So I write it down, I record it. And then after they emerge from hypnosis, I share some of those insights that they had. And many times they're absolutely amazed and stunned with the kinds of things that they came up with that will allow them to live their lives in a different, more full way.
That's beautiful. I love how you related that. What this reminds me of, too, is that, nature has the answers as well for us here. And there's a direct relationship to what you're saying, doing our inner work in these ways with looking at nature or including nature in our healing work, because they're both interconnected. And we forget that the problems out there can be solved from nature out there, especially when we start bringing nature on the inside with our awareness. We can get so much from that in terms of solutions. And I'm saying this because my podcast show, I talk to people all over the country, Canada. I just talked with somebody from South Africa, and it seems like there's a unifying principle of what have we done to nature we can undo if we just simply sit and ask nature how we can be of help. That gets us back into going deeper, and your practices help us to go deeper if we are puzzled by something, whatever that is.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
Very nice. Ajamu, do you have any short story for what's happening right now that you've seen, that you feel that there's been a breakthrough or an easing up for someone recently through the COVID?
I do. And I'll cite the same client that I was mentioning earlier, who's a frontline person. He's a school teacher in Queens, and he deals with anxiety on a regular basis prior to the COVID crisis, and now he's dealing with it in a different way. But since we've been working together, he's just had some amazing breakthroughs. So many times we will read things, or maybe we'll hear things in classes, and we want to hold on to them, and we want them to be true for us, but maybe they're not yet true for us. And by taking his story and creating the hypnotic space for him to revisit his story and change the pattern of how his story has played out, he's seeing some real amazing things happening in terms of how he's relating to his work and to also his home life. And he happens to have an autistic child at home, which is, again, can be very challenging in the best of circumstances. But he's finding that his ability to relate to himself better is improving his ability to relate to the people that matter to him. So whether that's his colleagues, whether that's the students that he's serving remotely nowadays, or whether that's his own family. So I hold him up as someone who I really, really enjoy working with because he's very honest. And I have to be frank, most of my clients are not men. Most of my clients tend to be women. Most of the people who seem to seek out holistic therapy, in my experience over the last 25 years, have been women. So when I do get a man, it might be to stop smoking or something of that nature, but someone who is so brutally honest about what he's feeling and where he is in that crucible, it's so refreshing and so wonderful. And to be an ally, to be a partner in his healing is really just the highlight of my day often when I get a chance to work with him.
Oh, that's a great story. The other thing I hear in the story is that these are the silver linings of the COVID-19.
Yes, yes. And the way that people are reconnecting with other people. So I've been writing letters. I've been reaching out to family members personally that I just wasn't finding the time to reach out to. Am I less busy now? Am I more busy now? Some days I'm more busy. Some days I'm not busy at all. It varies. But what I've realized is what's really important is those connections of those people. We cannot take those things for granted. So writing a letter, an old-fashioned letter, sending an old-fashioned card on someone's birthday, these things are so significant. And when I go out to get the mail, if I'm fortunate enough to see the mail carrier, I always, from a safe distance, strike up a conversation and thank them so much for keeping the mail flowing, because it's not all internet, it's not all texts and Facebooks. That real communication often happens through those other means, the old-fashioned means.
And again, maybe this pause that we're in, because that's how it feels to me, is we're in a pause. We press the pause button. Is that maybe because we've been or have created a society that's filled with busyness, this pause is helping us to reevaluate just how special we are and precious we are to each other. I agree with you. I miss the old-fashioned letter writing thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I love getting a card in the mail, but I also love writing one to someone.
Yes.
And being more mindful as to my words that I use and how I frame my little message to them.
Yes.
So again, there's that a pausing. It gives us a chance to evaluate what's really important.
I'm with you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you. I think that for people who maybe were in a good place to start, then I think that a lot of these epiphanies might be happening. But depending on how unconscious someone was prior to this, they may not be seeing the silver linings in the way that you and maybe some of your listeners might be. So that's our work, is to help bring that awareness, especially the younger generation. When we talk about letters, they're not really of the generation that have experienced that. That's not their normal, to write a letter or to get a postcard or something like that, or to make a call that lasts more than a couple of minutes.
Right, right.
They don't know that world. And so to introduce them to that world, or to reintroduce some of the people who are maybe in more in our age category to that and what that meant. It was so meaningful to get a phone call once upon a time. And now we kind of dread getting a phone call.
Yes, but we have instant access with the internet to write a couple sentences, but that isn't a meaningful conversation either.
It's not.
And I'm grateful for the internet because I can at least see my grandkids, and we can be on for an hour, at a
Yes.
time. So that's kind of a good thing. Well, Ajamu, this has been wonderful. Again, your sharing and your knowledge and your wisdom, I really appreciate it. Do you have anything else before we sign off?
Well, I just wanted to do a little plug for what I do. I've been doing remote hypnosis for 8 years, as I said earlier. I've been able to help people in 28 states since that time, in 8 foreign countries since that time. So I would love to be the person that you choose as your partner in healing, especially if you are expecting a baby, because that's one of the things that I'm most passionate about, is helping people to have their babies with a minimum of medical intervention, to really be able to manage those symptoms and side effects that go with pregnancy, and to eliminate that fear and anxiety, and to have what we call a pain-free birth. That is something that's very possible for you if you are pregnant at this time. And my heart goes out to anyone who is dealing with bringing a new life into the world during this time. And if I can be the person that supports you on this last phase of your pregnancy, I would love to.
That's wonderful. And we will definitely have your contact information in the transcript. How about giving us your email and how people can contact you right now? And I understand, you've made yourself available on different platforms. So why don't you give us just a little synopsis of that, so people realize the different ways they can reach you and how they can work with you.
Yes. So some people are very comfortable doing Zoom, but then other people are more comfortable with Skype. So you can find me using both. My Skype handle is Samba Mind Man. So I've had that for a long, long time. But I also have a Facebook page. You can find me using my name for Facebook. I have 2 business pages on Facebook. One is Advantage Enterprises. The other is Awakened Birth. So if you're specifically interested in the childbirth work, you can find me there, or you can just look at the general information that I have on hypnosis at my Facebook page, Advantage Enterprises. I'm also on LinkedIn. You can find me there. And let's see.
Do you have an email?
Yes, of course. My email is my full name at gmail.com. So it's AJAMU AYINDE, Nancy David Edward, at gmail.com.
Wonderful. Well, I think that just about covers it, and I wish you just continued success. I know you're a gift to your patients, and I'm happy to have you here as well. So thank you again.
Thank you for continuing to do this. We need this now more than ever. I feel such a deep connection to nature, and I thank you so much for being an advocate for that, for all of us.
Great. Well, everyone, again, another beautiful interview with Ajamu Ayinde and his talk about how we can help ourselves and manage again and see maybe some of the good things with this COVID-19. And I'm grateful to him for his very inspiring talk and practical advice. This is Judith Dreyer. I'm the author of At the Garden's Gate book and blog. My book is available through my website, which is www.judithdreyer.com, as well as several distribution arms such as Amazon, Nook, Goodreads, and more. I'd like to remind all of you again that a transcript is available for each podcast. Please like them and share them. Let's support each other and get the word out. And remember, now is the time for practical action and profound interchange, so we value our world again. Enjoy your day.